And so, in conclusion, learning to do acting was fun and junk. There we go. Finally finished with the university education. Oh, I'm gonna just have a nice little...
You abandoned me! You took her away and you abandoned me! You abandoned me! You took her away and you...
Oh yeah, the Misfits review, I forgot about that. Okay, great, let's do it. Let's get going. Finally finish off this thing. For fuck's sake, this is like the 5th copy I've bought. Well, how the hell am I supposed to finish my superhero movie reviews now? Like what? Huh. Well, I suppose Doctor Who is technically a superhero, and there are lots of bad episodes of Doctor Who to choose from, there's no denying that. But then which one? Oh, you rotten son of a bitch! Yes, ladies and germs, Doctor Who. If there is any area of geek pop culture I know all there is to know about, it's the Russell T Davies series of Doctor Who. Alright, I'm the pop culture alcoholic and I am suffering from a media hangover. I'm also a huge fan of the classic series of Doctor Who, but the modern series is where I keep most of my encyclopedic knowledge. In case you've been living under a rock situated somewhere just east of the Medusa Cascade, Doctor Who is a TV series about a genius alien humanoid travelling in time and space in a time machine called the TARDIS, disguised as a 1950s police public call box. He takes on assistants or companions regularly who travel alongside him, battling other aliens every episode that come in all manner of wonderfully creative guises. It is also one of the longest running TV series of all time, second only in the UK to a TV series about real science? And I've got to warn you, today's review is going to be a little bit different to its predecessors. Today's episode is going to involve a little bit more geeking out than usual because, and I don't want to alarm anyone here, but I fucking love Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who with a passion that burns, with the fire of 1,000 suns roasting in the kiln of Lord Lucifer himself. I love Doctor Who. I adore it. Unfortunately though, we're not going to be talking about Doctor Who today. Today we're going to be talking about Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who. Now, I am by no means suggesting that when Stephen Moffat took over from the great Russell T Davies as head writer for the TV series Doctor Who in 2010 that the quality immediately plummeted. Far from it. The first series Moffat wrote was positively wonderful. It brought a whole new atmosphere to the show, colourful in both tone and quite literally. There were a lot of comfortable browns contrasting with vibrant colours and a leaning towards the steampunk look. In every scene the whole screen would just be bursting with life. The Doctor suddenly became this cool, young, smart aleck. He was playful, yet remarkably cunning, and also ultimately wise, compassionate and dignified. We got a lot of creative setups and some great writing. With the second series we did get a lot of the same good qualities, though there were one or two awkward moments.
Don't you have names?
We're the thin, fat, gay, married Anglican Marines. Why would we need names as well?
What does that mean? Why is that even there? Third series, things really took a turn for the worse. We started off on a really miserable note and the writing quality dropped drastically. There were some truly awful stories and then a convoluted and unceremonious killing off of some of our favourite characters. It also seems like the writers were trying to go somewhere new with their 11th Doctor, most likely worried that his quirky shtick wouldn't last forever. So they tried to make him seem more like his jaded, tortured predecessors, which Smith didn't really pull off very well. And let's not bring up the introduction of... Clara Oswald is a character I hate above all others. She is entirely without personality and is of no use to the Doctor, ever. On top of that, the writing in the latest series has just gotten worse. What with the new Doctor just being a rehash of Moffat's Sherlock, the ranting genius who talks to himself very quickly so that people can stand by and go, "What? Me no understand big words." And I've just been amazed how much the art of storytelling has just gone out of the window. For example, there's one episode where the Doctor goes to a ship where they find a Dalek who is on their side, and the Doctor intentionally turns it evil again so it starts to go on a rampage killing people. You are now a murderer, Doctor. A murderer! Still, I can't spend this review talking about every bad episode of Doctor Who since Moffat took over, else we'll be here all day. And before we even got to that load of awfulness, there was one particular episode of Doctor Who that pissed me off more than any of the others combined. It was called The Day of the Doctor. The Day of the Doctor is the episode of Doctor Who celebrating the show's 50th anniversary. The episode was broadcast in 94 countries simultaneously and was also shown in many cinemas at the time, making it the largest simulcast of all time. Naturally, to keep with previous standards, we celebrate this anniversary with a Doctor's crossover, with the current Doctor meeting previous incarnations of himself. This has been done before and usually leads to some very fun episodes, which, though inconsequential in the long run, are very entertaining. However, with this episode, Moffat decided to go all serious-like. This episode was advertised as showing what happened in the final days of the Time War. The Time War was a war between the Doctor's race, called the Time Lords, and a race called the Daleks, which culminated in the extinction of both species by the Doctor's own hand. We never previously saw what happened exactly, but it was frequently hinted at, and the entertainment in the concept, along with the trauma that it caused our protagonist, was in the mystery. Therefore, Moffat naturally thought that it would be a great idea to take that mystery away from us. Because that's what the genius writer of such episodes as Silence in the Library, Blink and The Empty Child thought was the best idea in writing terms. And I'm sure it was not just to make money. As I said, the series quality was already dropping fast by the time this episode was released, but with a USP like that and with casting announcements of both David Tennant and Billie Piper, who played the 10th Doctor and his companion Rose Tyler respectively. Ah, Rose Tyler. If puberty could have a name. I couldn't bring myself to miss it. So, let's see how badly Moffat can mess up a concept with so much backing behind it in The Day of the Doctor. So, in an attempt to make it look like the series has a shred of respect for the original source material, the episode opens with the original 1950s opening titles. And I'm sure that means a lot to the original fans for the entire 15 seconds it's on screen. This is also one of the many so-called Easter eggs in this episode of Doctor Who, despite the fact that the term Easter eggs is supposed to imply that the objects are hidden on screen, whereas these objects are about as subtle as a brick to the skull. We then truly begin the episode with a line from that vapid excuse for a character, the woman I hate above all women I don't personally know, Clara Oswald. Her. She gets the first line in the Doctor Who 50th anniversary special. Just think about that for a bit. And of course the line is nothing but blatant foreshadowing without any context whatsoever.
Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius.
So, Clara gets a call from the Doctor and her stunt woman kindly stands in to ride her motorbike out to the TARDIS.
Draft.
Oh, I see, so Clara can close the TARDIS doors by snapping her fingers. You know, that's funny, because I can do a little trick with my fingers as well. Fuck you. Once Clara is inside, the TARDIS is immediately and unexpectedly picked up by a unit helicopter, and airlifted into Trafalgar Square. What is the point of this opening when the TARDIS could have just landed in Trafalgar Square in the first place? Why, so we can have a publicity stunt, of course. Because, when you really think about it, that's all this episode of Doctor Who really fucking is. So it turns out UNIT has a job for the Doctor, as they have encountered a load of paintings that have been shattered in the National Gallery, and the paintings seem to have whole worlds preserved inside them. Who are UNIT, you might ask? Well, the Doctor will tell you with exposition at its laziest.
Did you know her? Elizabeth I?
Unified Intelligence Task Force.
Sorry?
This lot, UNIT, they investigate alien stuff, anything alien.
Not like you.
I work for them.
Didn't even attempt to work it into the natural flow of conversation. So after the Doctor is confronted with the painting of the last day of the Time War, we then cut to... yes, thanks, establishing title, I kinda guessed. It's actually The Fall of Arcadia, but who gives a shit? We then see an incarnation of the Doctor that was never previously referenced in the show, played by John Hurt, who plays an incarnation of the Doctor who fought in the Time War. It shows that on the last day, the Doctor made a decree to end the Time War and carved said decree into a wall with a gun. And is it just me, or does it look like something from the opening titles of an episode of Wallace and Gromit? We also find out that the Daleks, at the height of their power, could be destroyed by simply having the TARDIS bump into them. Why were these guys ever a threat? I'm surprised that when the Doctor meets them, he doesn't just bounce the TARDIS off them all like a pinball. The episode would be over in seconds. So we then cut to... yes, I can work it out! Who am I kidding? With this quality of episode, it was probably written for lobotomized gibbons. So we find out in the war room that John Hurt Doctor has stolen a weapon called the Moment, which will destroy both Time Lords and Daleks alike. So we see John Hurt Doctor taking the Moment out to an isolated hut. Because the hut is where the hurt is. Shout out to my Say Anything fans, who are the only people who ever got that joke. Where he intends to activate the Moment. And here's where we get to see one of the most offensively, intentionally misleading casting choices since Bryan Cranston in Godzilla. Here we see Billie Piper playing a human personification of the Moment's interface. This is the only role she plays. It is in no way Rose. It doesn't act like Rose, it doesn't sound like Rose, it merely looks like Rose. Well, Rose if she were going to a costume party as one of the Pirates of the Caribbean. And why is this so offensive? Because it's just so brazenly obvious why Moffat made this casting choice. It's so that people would hear about it, think that Rose Tyler was going to be in the episode, and he could cash in on all those people who were hoping in vain to get a glimpse of back when Doctor Who was actually good. I mean, what else could be the purpose of this casting choice? It's because Stephen Moffat, you couldn't get enough asses in seats in the cinemas on your writing quality alone. You are a liar, sir! A lying, money-grabbing cat! Okay, calm down, calm down. Save it for the end of the episode. Save it for the end of the episode. Okay, alright, okay. Let's go, carry on. So after the Moment does a bit of mocking of the performance of the one guy who's trying to bring a bit of credibility to things...
More. No more. No more. No more. No more. Stop it! No more. No more.
We get a nice little look of what it would probably look like if Edgar Wright and Michael Bay were to co-direct something. Seriously, the direction in this thing is often so uncomfortable and choppy. It's just another way the episode tries so hard to distract us from how awful it is.
I chose this face and form especially for you. It's from your past. Possibly your future. I always get those two mixed up.
If you have been inside my head, then you know what I have seen.
Hellboy 2, Indiana Jones 4, the horrors. So the Moment decides to go a little Christmas carol on John Hurt and so promises to show him his future, opening up a time portal for him to pass through. Meanwhile, after some more filler, we cut to the Doctor's 10th incarnation, played by David Tennant, who will not be sporting his trademark spiky hair in this episode, rather favouring a kind of wilting dead hedgehog motif. Why? Because Stephen Moffat legitimately thinks that hairstyle is an important character trait in the Doctor, and his fragile ego can't take the old Doctor's hairstyle challenging his Doctor's magnificent coiffure. We find the 10th Doctor pursuing a group of Zygons, which are orange shape-shifting aliens, who are invading the Earth in the 16th century with a hokey Queen Elizabeth performance. You see, rather than the main conflict in this movie being what happened in the last few days of the Time War as was advertised, the main conflict in the movie is going to be this thing with the Zygons. And trust me, it is way more boring than even I just made it sound. I mean, this plotline is so boring that we get the same mistaken identity joke twice in the first 5 minutes.
You're a Zygon.
A Zygon?
Oh, stop it, it's over. A Zygon, yes. Big red rubbery thing covered in suckers. Surprisingly good kisser. Even the real Queen of England would just decide to share her throne with any old handsome bloke in a tight suit. Just because he's got amazing hair and a nice horse.
Oh, very clever.
Whatever you've got planned, forget it. I'm the Doctor. I'm 904 years old. I'm from the planet Gallifrey and the constellation of Kasterborous. I am the oncoming storm, the bringer of darkness, and you are basically just a rabbit, aren't you?
Hey, Moffat's reusing dialogue from previous episodes that he didn't write in order to remove the poignancy of the originals. Why? Because he is a petty, vindictive little man. So whilst the thrilling adventure of the Doctor running around a quiet wood goes on, we cut back to Matt Smith, who is still caught up in the breakneck adventure of wandering aimlessly around an arts gallery.
Welcome to the Undergallery. This is where Elizabeth I kept all art, deemed too dangerous for public consumption.
God, I hope that doesn't include her father's tastefully nude self-portraits. Anyway, whilst looking at more magic paintings, the 11th Doctor then has a time portal opened up before him. He quickly jumps through it and lands in the forest with David Tennant, where they are quickly joined by Hurt. So, we have more than one Doctor in one location. You know what that means. Cheap jokes at the other Doctor's expense.
That is skinny. That is proper skinny. I've never seen it from the outside. It's like a special effect. Oi, ha, matchstick man. Timey-wimey thing.
Timey what? Timey-wimey?
I've no idea where he picks that stuff up.
Are you capable of speaking without flapping your hands about?
Compensating? For what? Regeneration, it's a lottery.
Oh, he's cool. Isn't he cool? I'm the Doctor and I'm all cool. Oops, I'm wearing sand shoes.
What are sand shoes?
Sand shoes and Grandad.
Grandad?
They're not sand shoes.
What the fuck are sand shoes?
You're me? Both of you?
Yup.
Even that one?
Yes.
Alright, I'll allow that one because he is awful. So, after what feels like 900 years of more filler and totally inconsequential and unfunny dialogue, Queen Elizabeth turns up, apparently a Zygon in disguise now, and she takes the Doctors to be imprisoned in the Tower of London. Meanwhile, back at the National Gallery, the unit scientists in search of the creatures who escaped from the paintings find that the floor is covered in dust, indicating a load of statues had been shattered nearby recently. And yet they still can't find those pesky aliens. God, I wonder where this could be going. Christ, do you remember when Stephen Moffat's twists were actually good? Nay, mind-boggling? I mean, is he just trying to dumb down the show so that they can put it on CBeebies? So the Zygons take the forms of the unit scientists and Clara is transported to the Tower of London by the unit leader. And somehow Clara totally fails to notice that the leader has suddenly started doing the evil voice.
Consequences could be disastrous. There's a precedent for that. Let's hope he changes his mind. Think about it.
Think about it!
I really do get into character, don't I?
That's an ironic statement, I'm assuming. So it turns out the leader of UNIT was a Zygon the whole time. Which makes absolutely no sense because why would they call in the Doctor since all he can do is sabotage their efforts? But then again, this is just the tip of the iceberg of the anti-logic campaign that sponsored this episode. So Clara grabs hold of a vortex manipulator and uses it to travel back to the 16th century. Meanwhile, the Doctors are fathoming how to escape their cell in the dungeons.
In theory, I can trigger an isolated sonic shift among the molecules, and the door should disintegrate.
You have to calculate the exact harmonic resonance of the entire structure down to a subatomic level. Even a sonic could take years.
No. The sonic would take centuries. 400 years.
Sorry?
Well, at a software level, they're all the same device, aren't they? Same software, different case. Scanning the door, implanting the calculation as a permanent subroutine in the software architecture. And if you really are me, that calculation is still going on.
Yeah, still going.
Calculation complete.
Same software, different face.
Hey, 400 years in 4 seconds. We may have had our differences, which is frankly odd in the circumstances, but I tell you what, boys, we are incredibly clever. How did you do that?
Wasn't locked.
Ah, see, this is a classic Moffat technique, and it's one of my all-time favourites. It's called the Clara technique. You see, because Clara is such an awful character who could never really contribute anything to a story apart from just merely being there, Moffat seems to think the best way to make her look good is by making the Doctor look absolutely incompetent, therefore making her look better by comparison. It's a terrible idea, and it totally undermines the core concept of the show that the Doctor's meant to be a genius, but it gets a few laughs every now and then, so it's all worth it. Well, it gets a few coughs every now and then. There were fewer crickets chirping. What do you want? So, Joanna Paycheck turns up and takes the group to another room in the dungeons where they explain in detail the Zygons' plans of freezing themselves in magic oil paintings so that they could break out in the present. But nobody cares. Get to the Time War part!
You see, Clara, they're stored in the paintings in the undergallery, like cuppa soups. Except you add time, if you can picture that. Nobody could picture that. Forget I said cuppa soups.
I wish I could, Matt. So as it turns out, the Zygon Elizabeth was actually the real Elizabeth all along, as they do the same mistaken identity joke again.
You're such a bad copy. It's not just the smell, or the unconvincing hair, or the atrocious teeth, or the eyes, just a bit too close together, or the breath that could stun a horse.
And I am the real Elizabeth.
This plotline just wants me to hate it, doesn't it? So in case anyone was at risk of getting whiplash from this movie's pace, we slow it down a little by showing the 10th Doctor marrying Elizabeth I, at what looks like the cheapest shot in the entire flick. Honestly, this is the largest simulcast of all time, and it's meant to be showing Queen Elizabeth's wedding, and it looks like they just threw up a tent outside a National Trust castle. Couldn't they at least afford just a few extras? And once again, as the Doctor's head for Tennant's TARDIS, we see the effects of Moffat's fragile ego as he for some reason covers the outside of the TARDIS with hay and lights the interior with a couple of glow sticks. Because he just can't bear it to look anywhere near as good as his TARDIS. Which, as the TARDIS transforms into it, we see has lights on the interior walls that look like the kind of neon representatives of nipples you might see outside a Soho strip joint. I imagine. So since the Zygons have taken over the bunker underneath the Tower of London, they have been joined by the people they are mimicking, and the original unit leader has locked down the base with intention to blow up London to stop the aliens from using any of the deadly tech in the room. The Doctors attempt to use the TARDIS to land in the bunker, but find out that it is TARDIS-proof. Oh no! What to do? Well, the Doctors call someone in the past and have the painting of the last days of the Time War moved into the bunker ahead of time, so when they go back to the 16th century and freeze themselves in a painting, they can break out in the present. What a load of pointless the whole TARDIS-proof thing turned out to be. And we get to see that a Dalek can actually be killed just by having 3 sonic screwdrivers used upon it. Again, why does the Doctor not do that more often? He just strapped 3 together and used them at once like the remote controllers in Peep Show.
The Megatron?
Lethbridge Stewart, what in the name of sanity are you doing?
The countdown can only be halted at my personal command. There's nothing you can do.
Except make you both agree to halt it.
Not even for 3 of you.
You're about to murder millions of people.
To save billions. How many times have you made that calculation?
Once. Turn me into the man I am now. I'm not even sure who that is anymore.
You tell yourself it's justified, but it's a lie. Because what I did that day was wrong. Just wrong.
Well, bye-bye moral ambiguity. I suppose we need everything a bit black and white for the kiddies, don't we? I'm sorry, but this is just such a load. We know why the Doctor had to destroy Gallifrey. It was revealed in the 10th Doctor's last episode that the Time Lords went mad in the bloodshed of the Time War and were intent on essentially destroying the universe, killing themselves and everyone in it.
That's what they were planning. In the final days of the war. I had to stop them.
Yeah, and now Moffat is just ignoring that? So the Doctor's come up with a plan to help settle the alien-human dispute.
And then you're going to negotiate the most perfect treaty of all time.
Safeguards all round, completely fair on both sides.
And the key to perfect negotiation.
Not knowing what side you're on.
So, for the next few hours, until we decide to let you out,
No one in this room will be able to remember if they're human or Zygon.
whoops, what do you say?
Yeah, and despite the fact that really wouldn't make any difference to the situation before, since both parties were suicidal a second ago, and it's ridiculous to think that you can make either party think they might be the other without wiping out all of their memories, I'm just beyond caring at this point, and as you'll see in a second, so is Moffat. Anyway, whilst the debate moves on, Clara has a word with John Hurt.
He's always talking about the day he did it. The day he wiped out the Time Lords to stop the war.
One would.
You wouldn't. Because you haven't done it yet. It's still in your future.
How did you know?
In your eyes. You're so much younger.
Clara, come here. Now stop talking crap and do something useful with yourself! So John Hurt decides to go ahead with using the moment to destroy Gallifrey and the Daleks, and so returns to his time, followed swiftly by the other Doctors. And what about that boring Zygon plotline they forced us to sit through for almost an hour? Never concluded. We spent most of the episode's runtime on the thing, and we never find out how it ends. This is just how little of a shit the writers were giving at this point. Even they know that the audience is bored off their asses at this point. They need to get back to the Time War stuff to keep even the slightest bit of attention span going. God damn it! Right, okay. So the other Doctors arrive and together settle on the idea that the destruction of Gallifrey is inevitable, and though a horrible decision, they are without alternative. But as a sign of support, they decide to do it together.
You don't have to do it alone.
Well, you know, it's not the best ending possible. I mean, it's fairly pointless and it means the entire thing's inconsequential in the long run. But it could have been a lot worse, and, you know, it's a little overly sentimental, but I can indulge in that once in a while, you know?
What?
Oh, what is it now, Clara?
What's happening?
Nothing. It's a projection.
These are the people you're gonna burn.
Clara, 1, they're in horrible pain. 2, if he doesn't kill them, the Time Lords will, and all of the rest of creation with them. Why does the human even get a say? And why did it have to be her?
The three of you. The warrior, the hero. And you. We've got enough warriors. An old idiot can be a hero.
I swear to God, Moffat, if you insult the 10th Doctor one more time just because you didn't write him, I will cut off your writing hands and burn them in front of you.
Be a doctor.
An awfully written Doctor that fans are abandoning en masse.
You're not actually suggesting that we change our own personal history.
Sorry, what?
We change history all the time.
Sorry, what are you talking about, What? What?
I have had 400 years to think about this. I changed my mind.
What?
There's something those billion Daleks don't know. Because if they did, they'd probably send for reinforcements.
What? What don't they know?
This time there's 3 of us.
Oh! Oh, yes, that is good! That is brilliant!
Oh God, could this look any more anticlimactic?
I've been thinking about it.
What's the plan?
The Dalek fleets are surrounding Gallifrey, firing on it constantly.
Skytrench is holding, but what if the whole planet just disappeared?
Tiny bit of an ask.
The Daleks would be firing on each other. They'd destroy themselves in their own crossfire.
Even if that worked, which it probably wouldn't, the Time Lords and the Daleks weren't the only ones fighting in the Time War, you know. And look, David Tennant is doing to the audience the exact same thing that Moffat is doing metaphorically.
Where would Gallifrey be?
Frozen. Frozen in an instant of time.
Alright, God, this is happening. Doctor Who is dead. Roll on the bloody stock footage. So the Doctors decide to transport Gallifrey to a parallel universe where it will be safe. But it turns out they'll need more Doctors to do this. Roll on the stock footage.
Good luck. Stand by. Ready. Commencing calculations. Soon be there. Cross the boundaries that divide one universe from another.
So Gallifrey is apparently saved, and we cut to the Doctors having a nice goodbye cup of tea in the art gallery. Oh, and just a little side note, Stephen Moffat did actually remember a couple of episodes later that the Time Lords were suicidal, and therefore they couldn't be brought back from the parallel universe, so all of this was pointless, and continuity is just fucked. So the Doctors say goodbye and head off to their own timelines.
Friends-in-law, we need a new destination, because I don't want to go.
Oh, and there's Stephen Moffat once again repurposing lines he didn't write in order to spoil the original versions for those who liked them. See ya, David. Sorry this will mess you up so badly you'll decide to appear in What We Did on Our Holiday. And really, that's the problem I have with this entire goddamned episode. Now, I realise that retcon in TV shows has long been a common sin, and nowhere has it been more prevalent than in the Doctor Who franchise, lingering around ever since the first regeneration. Oh, did I not mention that I can change my body and survive death? Must have slipped my mind. But retcon can be a necessary evil when it's used to open up good story opportunities. Here, however, it is not. I mean, to this day, the Doctor has still yet to find Gallifrey, and most people are giving up patience. And, by the way, did I mention what some of my favourite scenes in the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who were? They were the scenes when the Doctor talked about how traumatising the Time War was. I adored seeing this side of the character. It made the character so much deeper, seeming jaded and heartbroken. It made him seem so much stronger and weaker at the same time. Not to go all Spider-Man on you. See, the reason I bring this up is that the only thing this episode achieved by changing the end of the Time War was retroactively making those scenes pointless. Like, they were a mistake that the writers had to go back and rub away. Like the Days of Future Past did with the bad X-Men movies. And that is not right. You see, Moffat, I don't care anymore about what you do with your series of Doctor Who. I have lost the will to give a damn. It's sad, It's really, honestly saddening for me. But as far as I'm concerned, you can do whatever you like at this point with your series of Doctor Who. So you can do the thing where your Doctor lives for longer than any of the previous Doctors combined, because he's your Doctor and therefore the best, so he should. You can advertise an episode called The Name of the Doctor with the phrase, "His secret revealed," and then never have any secret revealed, let alone the titular secret. And you can go ahead and show a skeleton holding the sonic screwdriver and then never deliver on that. You can axe off characters you created off screen whilst they're still packed with potential and fan following, whilst simultaneously refusing to kill off characters everyone wants to see the back of. I don't care. You can have your sensationalist trash if you like. You can change the opening credits and the TARDIS interior every 2 episodes because you're scared that if anybody has time to slow down and look at what they're watching, they'll realise that it's drivel. You can do whatever you like, but you leave other people's hard work out of it. Stop trying to take away everything that I loved about the previous series, because, and I know that you're the head writer of Doctor Who as I'm saying this, but you have no right. You have no right messing in things that you didn't create. And if you don't think that you can write a good original story without using the same old characters and the same old villains, and with barely a single well-written storyline in an entire series, then maybe it's time you handed over the reins to somebody else and stop trying to smear yet further filth on one of the greatest TV series in existence. And the worst part is, you're not even going to learn, are you? Okay. Let's get this finished. So the Doctor takes a moment to admire the painting alone when a familiar face turns up.
You know, I really think you might.
I never forget a face.
I know you don't.
God knows what kind of messing with continuity this brings up, but Tom Baker is awesome, so I'll allow it.
Perhaps things do get lost, you know. Now you must excuse me.
I've a vat of crumpets to eat and a toilet to wreck. And so Tom Baker walked off the set that day and was never seen again. Actually, I kind of like to think that he killed himself right after he got off screen there. So we then see the Doctor joining a group of terrible back-of-the-head lookalikes to stare up at Gallifrey, and we see all of his past selves, including Tom Baker, who just looks off his face. And though I hate to jump on the whole Smith giant chin bandwagon, I have to say he looks a lot like something that Brad Bird would draw, doesn't he? Alright, that's the end. I've had my big speech. Now, time to watch some classic episodes of Doctor Who, the T. Davies, any series before Moffat. It's like medicine. I'm the pop culture alcoholic and I'm suffering from a media hangover. Thanks for joining me.